Today we're going to talk about how to hit those wedges that have one hop and stop, nice spin on them, really good action. If you want to make sure that you're really aggressive, accelerate with your body and accelerate through the shot. So if I have a little shorter backswing and I really move on through there aggressively, I don't want to start to slow down. When my body slows down, what ends up happening is my hands and wrists take over. I start to flip it a little bit. And that's that shot that drives us crazy, where it just kind of floats up in the air, not much spin. A lot of times it lands short of the green, really, really aggravating. It's nice to have those low penetrating shots that cut through the wind, stay nice and low, tons of spin on them so we can hit over a bunker, something like this, and then really get the ball to grab. So that's the first key. Have to be really aggressive through there when I'm hitting this shot. Number two, I like to open my stance a little bit and preset my hips a little bit open. If I do that, so if I go ahead and open my feet slightly, I'll even have my right foot slightly open here, along with my left foot, that's gonna help me to open everything up. As I start to open everything up, that makes it easier to get this shaft leaning forward so I can make a cleaner contact on this ball. Now I'm gonna hit a few, some of them are gonna be good, some of them aren't gonna be that good. We're gonna try to hit a nice low spinners on every single one of these. So now, aggressive through the shot, I've opened both my feet up and I really feel like I'm gonna pinch this ball into the turf, kind of smush it against the club face. Not too good on that one, hit a little off the heel, but not too bad. Definitely a decent shot up there. Not as much spin as the one before. So the third key here, we've got our aggressive acceleration through the ball, we've got our feet open. Let's talk about why we want to have our body open, why we want that forward shaft lean. There's something called, a lot of people refer to this as spin loft mountain. And basically what this says is, if you can kind of imagine my angle of attack or how I'm hitting into the ground is fairly level. I'm taking a little bit of a divot here, but I'm not chopping way down into it. Hitting down just very slightly. Now, if I don't have very much loft on this face, then it's not going to create much backspin. Imagine I had a sledgehammer and I'm just hitting this golf ball with my sledgehammer. It's going to knock it up there. It's going to be low because there's no loft on the sledgehammer, but it's just a knuckleball. The ball's not going to have any backspin at all. As I start to add more and more loft, the difference between how I'm hitting down in the ball, which would be this angle, so say I'm hitting down very slightly, and the difference in loft on my face starts to get bigger. So here's the sledgehammer, swinging level, no loft. As I start to add loft to my club face, that creates more spin. So this is what they call spin loft, and the more spin loft you get, or the bigger the difference between the direction the club's swinging and the loft on the face, the bigger the difference between those two, the more spin you're going to get. That's why you always want to use like a 60-degree wedge or at worst a 56-degree wedge when you're doing this. So as I add more and more and more loft, all the way up to, playably kind of high 40s, low 50s amount of loft on the face, that's going to give me the most spin. If I keep on adding loft, so kind of imagine as a mountain, as I get more and more loft, spin goes up and up and up. It kind of reaches that max around 50 degrees or so, and then it starts to lose a little bit of spin because I lose friction. There's a little bit of dirt in the way, there's a little bit of water in the way, whatever it is, you lose a little bit of friction between the club face and the ball. So as I add too much loft and I have this face way open like this, like a flop shot, it will go high, but it won't have any spin on it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take a lofted wedge so that I keep that loft up to get the spin, but I'm also making sure that I can be nice and consistent and hit ball first by de-lofting it and swinging through. If I took a lower lofted club, like a pitching wedge or a 9-iron, and I went ahead and flipped it and got the same amount of loft as I'm doing here, you really wouldn't get the spin because my strike would be too inconsistent. You wouldn't really get that compression on the golf ball, or it would be, one of them you compress, one of them you wouldn't compress. It's tougher to control it. So again here, now that we realize that, I have my 60-degree wedge. I'm going to play that ball when my feet are open. If you're looking at it from my left heel, it's just barely behind my left heel. If I add my right foot in there, it's kind of just in front of my right foot. And that's about where I like to play it, to really allow myself to hit down slightly, have the shaft leaning forward, and still get some pretty good spin. So again, I got my 60-degree wedge, and because I'm opening, my shaft is really going to lean ahead. I'm going to de-loft this club slightly. I'm going to get around that 50-degree spin loft. Oh, and that one I chunked a little bit. Didn't quite hit it as well, so not as much spin on it. Still a decent shot, but you'll notice how that one rolled out a little bit. And that's going to bring me my next key here, is not every single shot you're gonna spin. No matter how good you get at these, unless you're on PGA Tour, you're not gonna just spin the cover off of every single one of them. You have to hit it nice and clean. If I get anything between my face and the ball, that causes it to slide. The ball doesn't grab the face, it slides up it. So even a little bit of dirt on the face, a little bit of grass, a little bit of water, anything like that is really gonna cause it to lose some spin. So you have to have your wedge really, really clean. So here, I like to keep a little brush with me. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but I just have a little brush on my bag and I just wipe off the face, keep that nice and dry and clean, keep all the stuff out of the grooves. Grooves actually are misunderstood. If you don't have any grooves on the wedge, it creates just as much spin if there's nothing between the ball and the club. It's like drag slicks on a drag car. No grooves, all rubber to pavement, pure friction. Same thing with a wedge, but in reality, every time you hit, there's a little bit of grass, a little bit of water, something getting between your club face and the middle of the club, or the ball in the middle of the club. That's why you'll see little pieces of grass on your club face for where it impacted. Every time that happens, you need those grooves to allow all that debris to go into the groove and for the face to grab the ball. If you had a perfect lie, you're setting it up off a tee or something like that, you wouldn't even need grooves on the club. That's why you spin it so much. Sometimes when you're on AstroTurf mats, you can really get a lot of spin on there. So here, again, I don't want to get much stuff between my club face and the ball. So the next thing is, when I do this, I want to visualize like I'm staying pretty low to the ground and I'm just kind of brushing the turf. I am going to get a little bit of a divot, but it's not going to really chop down a ton. You can have some good spin if you chop way down on it, but it's kind of hit or miss because sometimes you'll hit a little bit too far behind it, it won't really spin like you want it to. There we go, that's a nice one. It's gonna be a little short. Kicked off that downslope, but that had a lot of spin on it. Just got not the best kick because of the downslope there. All right, so now let's talk about what we're gonna do with our hips and then our hands and our arms. I open my feet so that when I hit this shot, my hips can open up. I really want them leading the way. Again, that's gonna help me deloft the club like I need to. It's gonna help me have the hands leading the way to be consistent. And I'm really gonna be aggressive through the ball if I can have those hips kind of leading the way as I'm doing that. That one's got a ton of spin on it, a little low one. So you want to stop and really check up. So that thing's coming in low, but then it's trying to grab there at the end. So the hips are really key to that. Feel like your hips are opening up as that's happening. And feel like your belt buckle especially is facing the target. Now, last piece here again, I have to take a little bit of loft off this club so that I can be consistent and I can get the spin on there. Here's the move that most people get wrong when they're trying to take loft off the club. You don't simply push the face forward or push the hands forward. When you do that, look at my club face. It's going to open up the club face. And when I try to just move the hands forward and hit that shot, it ends up going way to the right. Not a very good shot. I left it short of the green. It's not really compressed like I want it to be. The key there is that you have to deloft the club by rolling the wrist or turning the wrist. So if you imagine, I'm gonna make a little setup position here. And when I come to contact, my hands are actually gonna be like this. I'm turning that club face down. The only reason the face is square is because I have the shaft lean forward. All right, so if I keep the club shaft straight up and down, there's my impact position. The only difference is when I really impact the ball, I'm actually going to be here like this with the shaft lean forward. If I'm looking at it from this down the line view, as I'm coming into the ball, I'm rolling the face closed a little bit, and then I'm really pinching it, compressing it against the ground, or what feels like it's against the ground, covering that to really get a lot of spin, a lot of the bite on it. Let me go ahead and clean up this wedge one more time, and we'll try to get a nice low one, again with a lot of good spin on it. Hit that one nicely. So those are the keys to really getting those wedges to stop, check up for you. Number one, I'm gonna open my stance a little bit. Number two, I'm gonna keep the club nice and clean. I have to have a nice lie. It can't be wet. I can't have a lot of stuff behind the golf ball like being in the rough. It's not gonna spin very much. I'm gonna have my hands leaning forward, really compressing the golf ball. My hips are leading the way, and then the real secret to this, I have to have this delofting with my wrist, like I'm rotating this club. If I can put those together, then I can really pinch that ball, get a lot of spin on it.